Welcome back to another episode of Colony Drop, a Gundam podcast. My name is Brian.
And my name is Isaac. This is your favorite Gundam podcast where we talk about anything and everything that is related to Gundam. That could mean Gundam music, Gundam series, movies, concepts, lore, the Gunpla, of course, even Gundam amusement parks that are hypothetical and will in no way ever exist.
Don't dash your hopes yet, Isaac. Maybe one day, maybe.
That's true. Well, yeah, all right, you got me there. You got me. We live in such a unique world, right? Who knows what'll happen in the future? All right?
That's right. So today, Isaac, we're going to dip into the lore a little bit. The lore, the manga, some shorts.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a good time. So, Isaac, you know that one of my favorite things about Gundam is all the little lore tidbits and some of the ace pilots. One thing I've wanted to do for a while is to look at some ace pilots. So I thought, what would be a better place to start than two of your favorite characters in Anavel Gato, the Nightmare of Solomon, and Cima Garahau, the Mayfly of Space.
These are two of the most complex characters in the Universal Century, if not all of Gundam. They've really had a dark horse role. I'm not sure what phrase I'm looking for. A dark horse role within the timeline that kind of like punches above their weight. They had such a huge impact for, in the grand scheme of things, being somewhat minor characters, right?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't, in one of the big 50-ish episode series. They were in, 0083 Stardust Memory. So it's not like they were around in that many episodes in terms of volume, but I think they're definitely fan favorites for the limited amount of time that they were in this series.
Yeah, and not only that, they were just so well written. Their storylines, the surprises about them that we saw, their piloting abilities, especially Cima herself for being on the short list of female pilots, on the short list of female Zeon pilots, and on the short list of, I guess, treasonous characters, treacherous characters. But yeah, oh god, and clearly that was noticed in Japan because they made this content. They made manga series and little OVAs that touch more on Cima and Gato especially.
Yeah, so I think we were originally going to do just a Gato episode and just a Cima episode, but I think we're going to do both of them together tonight, and I think that works out because if you go through some of Shima's stuff, they end up crossing paths a bit, her and Gato. So that's fun. That's a nice crossover. That's a nice coincidence to try to do this. Did you expect Gato to bleed over so much into Shima's?
No, actually. I mean, based on 0083, you could be forgiven for thinking that they might have heard of each other, but they never really interacted much, you know?
Yeah.
But as we saw in this new content, or not new, but after the fact new, I guess, they definitely had crossed paths at least once. There was some shared history there. Not necessarily bad blood, though, which was kind of surprising for me. But yeah, 0083 was not the first time they met.
All right, listeners, so let's dive in here. So, Isaac, when I first heard the name, the Nightmare of Solomon, my first reaction was like, that's pretty cool. That's a cool name. I like that. My second reaction was, what did this guy actually do at Solomon to earn said nickname?
Yeah.
When you saw 0083, did you feel like we got a good sense of what he did at Solomon, or people just were kind of generally fearful of him?
Not at all, because, we're told his name. He's clearly an ace and very important. He's great at even infiltration missions, which aren't necessarily something a pilot would do. Well, not necessarily great. I mean, the Federation security.
Yeah, maybe not the most difficult mission, depending on time of day when you walk by the Federation base.
Yeah, I was giving him too much credit. Let me take that back. But, they didn't even do any flashbacks, if you remember. I mean, 0083 starts and they're showing us about Baku, but Gato doesn't really do a lot.
Right.
We kind of just mainly see him in the hangar, so we're told he's good, but we're not really shown he's good. This, though, this showed that he was completely on the level of, Char as far as being able to be a lone mobile suit that can take out fleets, and at the same time, he was so good. Amuro, assumed he was a new type at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, or couldn't believe he was not a new type, I should say. But yeah, it was good to see, where the name the Nightmare of Solomon came from and how he could single-handedly take down a fleet.
Exactly. And so, listeners, what if I told you that there were 3 adaptations, at least 3 that I'm aware of Gato at the Battle of Solomon? Did you realize that there were 3 of these, Isaac? There's just so many. That's a lot, even for Gundam.
Yeah, I mean, no, I didn't know, Brian. But it makes sense because of what a long shadow Gato casts over the UC. You know, like I assume next to Char, he's the most widely known ace from the 1 Year War. Yeah, I'd stand by that as far as on the side of Xeon. You know, I know Xeon had a lot of other aces, and they all had like their own little mangas and stuff, but I feel like only Gato has had his little series, you know, flashing back and
Right.
the manga on top of it, right?
Yeah, Gato's definitely up there. I don't know if I could name someone between him and Char. So at least for that time period, maybe if you go into other, Zeta, etc. But the first time that they adapted this, now keep in mind, remember listeners, that 0083 came out in 91 through 92. So the first adaptation of Gato and Solomon was called Mobile Suit Gundam 0079, The Nightmare of Solomon. It came out in 1993. It was a manga one-shot, which one-shot basically means it's like a one-issue story. So roughly, somewhere between 20 and 25 pages usually. It was written and illustrated by Tsukasa Kotobuki. And I think the defining thing about this one, Isaac, is two things for me. One, in this one, which has been retconned in the subsequent adaptations, but in this one he uses his Gelgoog, his blue and green Gelgoog, which you don't like. But in addition to using the Gelgoog, Isaac, he uses this massive beam rifle, which is so cool. And if you're ever looking up Gato on the internet back in the early 2000s, you probably saw this picture of him in his Gelgoog holding this enormous beam rifle, which is twice the length of his Gelgoog.
Yeah, this is like, it looks like something that'd be like a sniper rifle. He definitely didn't need to use it at long range though, because he just, he'll stand next to like the bridge of a Salamis and blow it up. But yeah, like I guess since this was a prototype or one of the early beam rifles for Xeon, they just couldn't get it compact yet. So it's almost like the length of like a main gun on like a Musai or a capital ship.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so a brief summary of this. It takes place at the Battle of Solomon, obviously. During this battle, Gato, he's part of the Xeon Space Force. He's part of the 302nd Patrol Squadron. He's out there with Carius, Chief Petty Officer Carius at this point, who is through, he's with us in 0083. So it was nice to see Carius here, Isaac.
Yeah, again, that was another thing where, well, they told us they, worked together, but we never actually saw Carius at all in the flashback. We never saw him at a Bawaku, to my knowledge, and then we didn't even see him in the hangar bay of Delaz's ship. So
right.
To see him here in the squad was like, oh, this is amazing. Even Carius is here. It's a full throwback.
Yeah, you're getting not only the Gato story, but you're getting the whole crew along with it. They're using Gato as the vehicle to give you a lot of people that were in 0083, right? So, in Carius here, Isaac, did you notice they put him in a Dom, which is a nice touch because he pilots the Rick Dom 2 in 0083, so they had him in the same suit, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, it's good for him to stick to what he knows. To his credit, he lived.
That's true. Carius is he's the man. So Carius sees the big Zom launch, and he wonders if they plan to abandon Solomon.
Was your interpretation of that to mean if they didn't launch the big Zom, they were doing well enough that it wasn't needed?
That was how I took it. It was a little bit awkward, but yeah, I interpreted it to mean like, oh man, if the big Zom is going out, things must not be going well.
Okay, so at that point it was just still very prototype, and we dare not send it out unless the situation's desperate. Okay.
Gato at this point is lieutenant, and he's in a Dom, and Kelly Leisner, he's in a big row. They both wake up from being hit by the solar system, which I thought was a great touch, Isaac. We didn't know that Kelly's arm was taken off by the solar system. So when I was writing notes for this, Isaac, I accidentally wrote that Kelly's arm is toast, and then I realized that I had made a bad joke.
Not a bad joke, Brian. A proper joke. It was accurate, like a sniper rifle. But yeah, like Kelly, it looked like when he got hit, like a third of him got cooked.
Yeah, it didn't look pretty. I mean, and we didn't even know that he was in a big row up until this point, did we?
No, but that makes perfect sense, because who better to fly the Valvaro 3 years later than someone that was in another mobile armor, right?
Yeah, very similar to the Valvaro, just not as cool, right? So.
And shout out to the engineers or design team that made the Xeon flight suits, because aside from Kelly's arm, like his face is fine. Half of his helmet looked like it was melted, but his face withstood whatever happened.
It looked pretty gruesome regardless. Nothing good was going on in that cockpit.
No.
So Gato and Kelly, they end up getting back to the Delos. So they're on the Delos, and Gato asks for another mobile suit. They're very similar to what we saw in 083 at Baoku, but here we're in Solomon. Maybe that's why this got retconned a little bit. Gato asks for another mobile suit, and one has arrived sent expressly by Dozel, and it's the Gelgoog, and it comes with this enormous beam rifle. And the fact that it even has a beam rifle is a shock to Gato. He refers to it as like that beam rifle, which I'm assuming he's referring to the RX-78's beam rifle, which he's probably up to this point heard so much about, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. Dozel puts Gato in charge of reforming the Mobile Suit forces after the battle. He's basically going to stall them, Isaac. He has to stall the Federation forces so that the Delos can retreat and they can, live to fight another day. And so he does that. He basically lights all the Federation ships up. He draws awe from Kai and the gun cannon. And like he said, we get praise from Amuro here. Amuro flies by stating that, Gato is strong enough not to rely on new type abilities and is I believe, what does he call him? Like a true ace pilot, I think?
Yeah, he's like, that's, I think first he was like, I can't believe there's no new type energy or whatever coming from that mobile suit. I must be dealing with like an actual just ace pilot or something like that. That must be just an ace pilot.
The Immortal Fourth Team flyby, that was cool. That was a good cameo.
Seen Burning, yeah. We saw Burning and Mancha, I think, right?
Yeah. And then after that, Sayla flies by in the G-Fighter, but it's also like the bustiest version of Sayla that I've ever seen, so that was hilarious.
I saw her and I was like, I think that's a new character, and then I was like, oh, it really is Sayla.
Nope.
Because like her face, well, she's at a very unique angle, right? Like they kind of did this cockpit style angle that's kind of like a fisheye lens or something.
Yes.
But yeah, you would have to be told that's Sayla. Otherwise, I thought that was a female pilot number 5 or something.
That normal suit is barely hanging on. Is all I'm saying. But onto the mission, Isaac. Gato destroys 8 ships. I think he destroys 3 Magellans and 5 Salamis. Zeon fleet escapes, and he earns a 2-rank promotion. And overall, Isaac, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this one-shot manga. It had great panel layout, great panel design. It was tightly paced. There was only 20 pages in this manga, so it's not a lot to really tell your story. And I felt like I really got it. Seeing the beam rifle, using the blacks and the whites, I thought it was really well done. Did you enjoy this one, even though it involved the Gelgoog and not his Dom?
I enjoyed it because of how much it fleshed it out. Compared to like the rest of the content we might talk about tonight, this one might have been the most comprehensive.
Yeah.
As far as showing just a slice of Gato's life during the 1-year war, a slice of, his little squadron during the 1-year war and how he actually earned the name.
Agreed. And so one note on the rifle, because this is a bit unfortunate, Isaac. And so listeners, in general, this entire one-shot has now been retconned because now the official lore is that he used his Dom at Solomon, not his Gelgoog. He didn't use his Gelgoog until Baoku. So fine. But they also retconned the rifle, Isaac. The rifle is no longer in existence. They now retconned it into another Gelgoog rifle, the same one that the ground Gelgoog uses. And it's a better looking rifle than like a normal beam rifle, I guess, but it's not as big. And when they made the master grade Gato's Gelgoog, they put the new rifle in it, not the big one from this manga.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant the other one. Okay.
No, so I actually have Gato's Gelgoog, the Gelgoog master grade. I really wish there was a way to get the long rifle from this manga. So if anyone out, I guess I got to go check out some 3D printing websites. Maybe someone out there makes it. But if anyone has any good leads, I would love to buy one of these giant beam rifles. It's probably going to be $50 based on the amount of plastic that this thing would require. But every time I see this rifle, Isaac, I think of your big sniper rifle that you want for your orange Gelgoog or whatever.
It's not long enough. It's not dense enough. It's still not large enough, Brian. But you know what? At least Zeon was thinking in the same ballpark. At least in the early days.
Anything else on that one, Isaac? Or should we move to the second one?
I don't remember Gato's flagship at the time being at Solomon. Right? Was that actually at Solomon? I thought they were just always kept back at Zeon Homeland.
I don't recall. It's it could be one of the reasons why this was retconned.
Okay.
If anyone out there knows why this was retconned to being the Dom, is it perhaps that the Gelgoog was not introduced during Solomon. I can't remember if that's right. Or at least maybe Shar has his, but no one else has one yet.
I mean, it kind of raises the question of like, why did Admiral Tien not hit it when he had the chance with the solar system, right? Like, was the captain in charge of that ship like that good? Like, he could just kind of, or if he was that good or that lucky, they just didn't get hit and they had time to go back and get ready for Baoku.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the first time we saw him was at Baoku, so I think you might be right. But this could just be one of those instances, Isaac, of like, hey, this looks cool, let's put it in a manga, and we're not going to care too much about it. And then someone later came along and was like, actually, this doesn't go along with the right sequence of events, so we have to change this up a bit.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Either way, it mmade no difference because Zeon still lost both battles.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one thing I do know about the Gelgoog, for example, is that over the years, I think the original lore, if I recall, they said there was a certain amount of Gelgoogs. Then over the years, they've gradually expanded that number just because the number of side stories have grown. And like, if you start giving everyone Gelgoogs, and originally you said that there were only, I'm just going to make up a number. If there were only 25 Gelgoogs, but then you do 30 years of side stories, well, you've given out too many Gelgoogs at that point, right? So you then need to, retcon your lore a bit and say, well, actually, we made a few hundred. Right, so it could be one of those cases, but if anyone knows definitively, that would be interesting to hear. So
yeah, that kind of makes sense too, because I feel like the Gelgoog's gotten weaker over time too, right? At first it was released and it was, this is essentially a match for the Gundam, and then over time It was no.
Yeah, the way I would always interpret it is like the specs are as good as the Gundam, but not everyone's Amuro Ray, right?
Yeah, well, even then, I think in combat it's still not the same, but I digress.
Okay, so that was the first attempt at adapting the Nightmare of Solomon. The second attempt, Isaac, came in 2003. There was another manga, again, called Nightmare of Solomon. This one was written and illustrated by Masato Natsumoto. This one was a little bit more straightforward, Isaac. I think this one was even less pages. I think it was only 15, if I recall, 15, 16.
I would describe it as the concise version of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's much the same thing, right? But without a Gelgoog and without the beam rifle story.
If you had explained to someone in an elevator what happened, like, this is the version you would show them.
Yeah, Gato took out his Dom and blew up some ships, right?
Like, so there was a battle, they're in space, and then it was over.
Yeah, we opened with some Federation forces advancing on Solomon. Gato's waiting in his Rickdom on the Delos, and the Rickdom is holding the big beam bazooka, which I believe is called the EX-T2-2 beam bazooka.
Right.
And he launches. He beats up some gyms.
Which, to their credit, that beam bazooka is way more reliable than the prototype beam rifle he got handed in the other anime. Like, this beam bazooka, like, we've never heard anything bad about it, right? Like, it always works.
Yeah, it wasn't prototype at all, right? It was just, this thing is great.
It's very well engineered, yeah.
He takes out a Magellan, I think. And then, I think, is it the captain of the Magellan, Isaac, that says, he asks himself, like, is this a nightmare? And that was kind of the way that he took his name, I suppose.
Yeah, although you think he, like, accidentally hit, like, a broadcast switch, and, like, everybody in Zeon heard it. And they were like, oh, wow, that's a great name, Gato.
Striking. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that was a good way to give him his name, but you're right. I don't know how anyone else would know about it. So, and that's kind of it, Isaac. He kind of just blows up some ships. I guess the one thing here, Isaac, we do see it returning to the ship at the end of the manga. We don't know what happened to his Dom. So I don't know, what's your headcanon for where it went, Isaac? I mean, it did lose an arm in this battle, but I'm going to assume that's because he fired the bazooka too many times and he blew his own arm off, because he didn't return with the bazooka. He must have left it out there. Yeah.
You kind of have to decide for yourself what exactly went on to happen at Abawaku. Was he still in a Gelgu at Abawaku, and it either needed to be rearmed too long or repaired, and that's why he made that desperate attempt to try to get into a Dom when Delaz was trying to talk to him?
Yep.
Or did he have a Dom and still the same thing happened? Essentially, it needed to be repaired, or, rearmament was taking too long, refueling. That's why he made a desperate attempt to try to get into someone else's Dom. And that person, by the way, apparently used like a lock or something, because he had some trouble trying to get in, remember? And Delaz had time to catch up to him.
Hey, don't go in there.
Once again, Zeon thinking ahead. Yeah. locking the equipment.
But only for themselves. No one else uses these locks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like in the middle of a battle as important as Abaoku, would you like want things unlocked maybe so you can get to them faster? But
I think that would be the only time you want them unlocked, right? When you're on your own ship in the middle of the battle, that would be the one time to keep things unlocked.
You know what? Actually, no. Because I assume among the pilots, by that point, they knew how rare their mobile suits were, how costly it was to actually get them. So I assume one pilot, or at least maybe more than one, wisely decided to put a lock system in. That way he knew if something happened and someone tried to take my mobile suit, it would not happen.
Although we will see when we talk about Cima that Gato did end up piloting that Dom. So
yeah, true.
So Isaac, I don't know, but this one, like you said, I think I enjoyed this one a lot less than the first one.
Yeah.
You know, the plot, it just wasn't as specific. There just wasn't as good panel layout. Just not as much substance to this one.
No.
I don't want to say that it's a bad manga, but when you read them back to back, it's hard to like this one more, I think, than the first one.
Yeah, you get the same story beats, but it's you get a little bit less on your plate. It's the bread and butter.
Okay, Isaac, so then... That was back in 2003, Isaac. That was like almost 20 years ago. So enter, I think 2021, or maybe this year, maybe 2022. 2021 or 2022, a new mobile game came out. It was called UC Engage. I think we may have mentioned this on another podcast, and honestly, it's pretty hard to find info about this game because it's not available. You can't play it in English. Surprise, surprise. But it's basically a mobile game, and it's like a 6-on-6 battle thing. I think you give some touchscreen commands. But there are a lot of anime cutscenes, and there's also an original story. And this game is famous for having sort of animated Moon Gundam for the first time.
Wow.
It did this Nightmare of Solomon short, which we're about to talk about, and it did another short where Cima fights the GPO-4, which has never been animated before, except for, I think, in Gundam Evolve. So it's animating a lot of cool stuff, Isaac. It's kind of like the old video games from maybe the mid-2000s where those had a lot of cool cutscenes that animated a lot of stuff that hadn't been animated before. But I can't really find a whole lot of good English summaries about the game. If listeners, if you know of one in a nice summarized fashion, consolidated fashion somewhere, I think we would like to read it. As far as I know, Isaac, the original story revolves around this new type girl named Pesh Montaigne. And I'm just going to read her description from the wiki.
Sure.
She's a new type candidate trained by the Flanagan Institute. She volunteered as a pilot to succeed Captain Oregon, a technical officer in the Zeon Army, and her adoptive father. However, her mobile suit piloting skills are far from perfect, and her new type abilities are very weak. She pilots the Gundam Development Test Unit 0, also known as the Engage 0. And I think this is basically either the first Gundam Development Project suit replacing the Blossom, which is the GP00, or it could be coming before it because hers is just Unit 0. You see what they did there, Isaac? So they already had 00, Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4. So now they made hers Unit 0. It's like a single 0 instead of a 00. Another creative way to get another one in there, or it's otherwise just adjacent to the Gundam Development Project altogether. Maybe it's happening because it happens in 0083, Isaac. So it's like around the same time.
At this point, they're gonna do like, oh, by the way, there was a negative series. There's -1, and then -2, and -2 is almost stolen. There's that side story.
You know what? I would still read it.
Probably Gundam ends. The negative series. Ooh.
I know in the game at least it takes place, I think, in 0079 and 0083 and maybe even 0087. So you kind of follow this Pesh girl sort of throughout the years, and I don't know. It's one of those side story games. I would like to, play it or at least watch all the cutscenes one day with some subtitles. Some of them are available. You can see some subtitles. The one we're about to talk about a little bit later had none, but this Gato one did. So there was an event in the game, Isaac, where they did the Nightmare of Solomon event, and they animated for the first time, Gato at Solomon. And we kind of just watched the animated version of the second manga adaptation. And to its credit, I think it was better than the manga adaptation, but it was still pretty short.
Yeah, there were a lot of segments of it that were, I don't know the proper animation term, but a still image that's moving.
Yeah.
Not specifically, different cells or actual animation moving itself, but just us moving across an image that's static with sound effects or voiceover. Yeah. So that, not terrible, but at the same time, I was kind of like, this is kind of an anime. It's kind of a JPEG.
It's the Nightmare of Solomon on a budget, all right?
Yeah.
This is your mobile game budget. But yeah, the short, I mean, you know, listeners, you can find this on YouTube, you know, just search Nightmare of Solomon, UC Engage, and you'll find it. It starts out right away, Isaac Gato, he just assaults the ship. There's not a whole lot of lead in. He's in his Dom, which is in the color scheme, which I don't think you like, right? You get the blue Dom with the sort of the green armor.
Nope. Isaac votes no. That will not appear in the Isaac fleet. You're banned.
I mean, he has some good lines here, Isaac. He says, "I will not let you tarnish the glory of Xeon. At the very least, become a funeral flame and burn." That's pretty good. He destroys, I think I counted 6 ships in 1 minute, which that's pretty great, right?
Yeah, he's living up to his name. And
one thing here, Isaac, is we do see the 4th team. They're in some gyms, and they see him fly by. And Burning this time is the one that says this is a nightmare because he's observing all these ships go down to this one mobile suit.
Yeah. You know what? This might be a case of where the name really came from the Federation side and, you know, it was discussed among them, heard in communications among them, and then it made its way to Xeon.
I agree. I think this is the best adaptation of the name origin, for sure. Burning giving it to him is a pretty good... I like that.
Probably, yeah. The Immortal 4th team lived, watched all this mayhem, reported back, and then from there, just, you know, the constant... I don't know, Xeon was listening in or whatever, however things transpired.
Yeah.
The name made itself famous.
And you know what I like about this appearance by the 4th team, Isaac, is that did you notice that one of them is in a Jim Cannon 1? And I assume it's the same one who pilots a Jim Cannon 2 in 0083.
Oh, Mustache, right?
Yeah, was that I don't remember if it was Bait or Adele. One of the two.
Yeah, he was the only one that was kind of good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The one that clearly respected other people.
Not Mancha, who just was a pig, and the other guy who was also kind of a...
Yeah, the other guy who clearly supported what Mancha was doing.
Yeah. He was like the enabler, right?
Yeah, it's like, you're not helping.
So I think this was a fun watch, Isaac. You kind of get to see Gato just blow through a whole bunch of capital ships with the beam bazooka. So if that sounds great to you listeners, just look it up, and I think you'll enjoy it. There's a few other cameos. We do get to see Kelly and his damaged Big Row. So they kept Kelly in the Big Row, which is, I think, a good lore addition. You get to see Shin Matsunaga.
Yeah, he's in it for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that was unexpected. That really had nothing to do with the story. I think they just threw that in there like, haha, look, a Shin cameo.
Yeah, it was like one segment of one page. Or, yeah, it was so brief. I was like, why is he here? And then he was gone.
Yeah, I will have to do another episode on him because this part didn't even really make sense unless you knew something about him. So that was a little odd.
I'm trying to remember. Was Kelly's Big Row, was that the same color scheme as Gato's mobile suit?
No? Oh, I don't remember. I don't think I looked at the color. I'd have to go watch it again.
Okay, I could have sworn it was kind of a greenish blue, which
could be.
Maybe they had like a friendship pact.
Yeah, maybe that was their like little squad color.
They were twinning. Yeah.
So after consuming all these 3 things about Solomon Isaac, I have to wonder, knowing also what he did in 0083 with, nuking the fleet and taking out the Noisiel, he has to have the highest kill count of any Xeon pilot, right? In terms of raw lives taken. Maybe not MS kills, but in terms of like bodies put in the bag.
Yeah, at this point he's like rivaling the targeting engineer that pressed the button on the solar array, right?
Yeah.
That's like the only person that's kind of close,
Yeah, because you got to think there's how many people in each one of those ships he takes out? At least 100, right?
Right. Possibly the captain that hit like the nuke trigger that took out a few colonies would be close also. But at the same time, those aren't technically combatants. So
right, yeah. He's doing this in a mobile suit. So
yeah.
And in 0083, you could even count that he was the last one to touch the colony before it hit the Earth too. So I would give him credit for whatever that took out.
Yeah. Oh God, I still wonder about that. Like
all 10 farmers that he killed,
those poor farmers running for their lives on their horses.
Hauling ass on their John Deeres to get out of the way.
It's like, I don't think we have anything to worry about. That colony's headed straight for South America. And then they just get like, an emergency notification text. They're like, oh my God. Don't they know we make food for the whole sphere? Did Gato do something in the command center to like lock the controls? I'm pretty sure he said something like, I've locked the controls. in the colony, right? In 083.
Oh, yeah. He was the one to finally redirect it. So he did. Yeah, I think he did that, and he probably locked it so no one else could change it.
And Ko didn't even attempt to like circumvent the lock, right? Or like call Federation tech support and say, "Hey, I'm in the colony.
Ko.
Like, give me like the skeleton key code or something."
Yeah, or wouldn't you at least like shoot all the panels to try to mess it up? No,
that might do more harm than good. But like, isn't there someone in like Federation IT who can like backdoor the system or something, and like we can put the colony into the ocean?
Maybe he called him, but the wait time was too long.
Yeah, it's busy. Like, oh, what's your membership number? And can you
press 3?
Can you confirm your date of birth? He's like, you know what? I'm leaving. Good luck.
So I guess, Isaac, do you think the beam bazooka had a good showing here? And then do you think the beam bazooka is better than the Gelgoog beam rifle in the other one?
Ooh. Well, looks wise, I kind of like the prototype beam rifle first.
Yeah.
And that's because it looks so cool. It's kind of like this sinister looking sniper rifle. Very Zionic. But it overheated and all that.
Yeah.
We know the beam bazooka performs better and is way more reliable. My issue with the beam bazooka has always been, I've always felt it's too bulky for its own good. Like almost no other weapon, Federation or Xeon, is that size. It works, but it's just, at a certain point, it's like, well, this weapon is almost twice the length of the mobile suit using it. Like, we should have done something to compact it more. We should have put way more man hours into compacting it.
Yeah, you need some escorts when you go out in that thing, right? Because at some point, when you run out of ammo, you're kind of just dead weight with that thing. It reminds me of the full armor Double Zeta bazooka.
Oh, God.
Like a smaller scale of that.
Yeah, that thing, I would imagine, is even, scale-wise, it's not even as long, right? Because the Double Zeta full armor bazooka is not twice the length of the Double Zeta.
No, but it's pretty bulky.
Yeah, it's... At a certain point, the weapon's just too long. It's the Jormungand problem, right? Where it's like, well, you're going to have to stay in the back and shoot. You're going to be a glorified sniper, so...
Okay, well, I enjoyed those 3 adaptations. So if you're a fan of Gato, listeners, I encourage you to seek them out. The UCN Gauge short is available on YouTube, not officially, right? But and then the 2 manga adaptations, those were translated by Zionic. He puts everything out for free. I think he actually just started a Patreon recently. So, if you like his work, you know what to do.
Hand him that money and get your dreams come true.
What did you think, Isaac? Are you satisfied by the Nightmare of Solomon tale, or do you feel he earned his name? I feel like he did.
I feel like he earned his name, but I'm not satisfied. And I'm not satisfied to the extent where, I'd like a full-blown series. I'd like a little... You could even do a back and forth with him and the Immortal Fourth team. We all know where it's headed. We all know where it's going. We know they're not going to die, but along the way, we just get to enjoy the journey of the one-year war from their perspectives.
I think someone actually just left us this comment that there's a great opportunity for them to do like an anthology series. We're seeing that a lot on like streaming, right? For Disney's doing that a lot for Star Wars, right? They're making kind of these single episode things that fill in the lore gaps. It would be great to just have one episode about the Nightmare of Solomon, one episode about Shin Matsunaga, one episode about Johnny Raiden. Like, you could do really entertaining things, I think, in 22 minutes and get a lot in there. I think a lot of people would enjoy it, and it feels like a no-brainer to me, Isaac, but it must just be too expensive or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Sunrise is certainly smaller than a lot of the major streaming platforms and entertainment companies. And neither of us really know how things are kind of planned over there, how the numbers are crunched before the proverbial pen even hits, the paper. But... yeah. There is a Gundam universe full of content, side stories, events that happened, and there's a lot of blank pages on the canvas. It could absolutely be filled out. Maybe in a few years, Brian, the AI will get so good it can just start pumping out animation.
Oh, yeah, maybe. So what I'm taking away from this, Isaac, is we just read 3 adaptations of the same event, and what you're saying is those were good, but you'd like to see a 4th.
I would like a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, because it's amazing, and everybody likes Gato. I can't think of a lot of people that don't like Gato. People will go out of their way to hate Nina.
Yeah, that's true.
Like almost nobody likes Nina, I think, but everybody likes Gato. It's because he's such a well-done character, and why would we not want to see more of such a great character, such a great pilot?
So you're almost there, Sunrise, but adapt it a fourth time.
Yeah, there's a pot of gold waiting for you. You just got to go over and get it.
All right, on to our second subject of the evening.
Yay!
Cima Garahau.
Oh, boy.
So this one's interesting, Isaac, because when we both, bought our 0083 DVDs back in the day.
Oh, back in the DVD days. Oh.
Yeah.
Brian, for our Zoomer listeners, can you explain the acronym DVD?
I believe it stood for digital video disc. It was a disc-shaped device, and you would put it in this player, and you'd hit play, and it had your media on it.
Oh, yeah. If you were really lucky, that had, like, special features.
Yeah.
You could, like, watch a DVD that had, like, the director commentary or behind the scenes or things like that.
Bloopers and outtakes and
yeah.
and things, trailers. And speaking of special features, Isaac, so even when we bought the DVDs back then, there was a Cima special on one of the DVDs, and it was called The Mayfly of Space.
Right.
And it was a short from 1992. It partially adapts what's called Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memory CD Cinema Episode 2. And my understanding is that this was some sort of, audio drama-ish type thing that was released as part of the soundtrack for either the show or potentially even the movie. And you got this short, I think by buying one of the DVDs of the OVAs that either led up to the movie, Afterglow of Xeon, one of our favorites on this podcast, or just maybe even the DVD of the film itself. But anyway, they put this short on the original DVD release. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's an anime, Isaac. It's somewhere in between. I think the official title is like picture drama, because part of it's animated, but part of it's just pictures, right?
Right, yeah.
And so this one's really short. I think it's only 2-3 minutes, right? It opens with Cima. She's on the Lily Marlene having a nightmare. She says she's been having nightmares for 4 years, and in this nightmare she's in a Zaku, floating outside of a colony, sort of abandoned. She's sort of out of control. And the nightmare recurs. And then I think when it recurs, someone's yelling at her, Lieutenant Commander Cima, and she's not responding. And we do get a glimpse of her, Isaac, prepping for the battle with these big spherical tanks, which we know that is the GG nerve gas.
It sure is.
It must have been a flashback to when she gassed the one colony that, was then used for Operation British.
Yeah.
And then after that nightmare, we see her launching her Gelgoog Marine Commander type as Delos is giving the speech standing in front of GPO2 with Gato. So this one very lightly alludes to Shima's backstory, which we don't really get a whole lot of in the actual show, right? We don't see that at all in the show, do we?
No, and I mean, I know the original series was aired, and, for time considerations, there had to be edits, of course. But this feels like it would absolutely help flesh out her story more, because her treachery kind of comes out of nowhere. You really need to kind of almost read about her treachery if you were watching 0083 blind to kind of comprehend what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can even say that more so about the second Mayfly of Space short. This has to be a record here, Isaac. Again, Mayfly of Space 1 came out in 1992. Mayfly of Space 2 came out in 2016. That's 24 years later. I mean, holy crap.
We have to clarify things. The Cima fans are demanding more explanation.
All right, it's been 24 years. Yeah. Throw them a bone.
Tomino just had an idea.
I mean, how about that fandom, though? That where there's some demand, I guess they see it.
Just a bunch of Cima fans with, like, signs outside of Sunrise headquarters, like, marching and
Save
protesting.
Cima, save Cima.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they were, sending in, like, tiger skins or something to Sunrise demanding
that's an
more Cima.
Yeah, that's a very expensive, if not possibly illegal, way to show your demands must be met.
I don't think they did it all for the fans. One, I think that was when, I'm not positive on this, so maybe someone can confirm, but that was around the time when they released the Blu-rays, I think, for 0083, so I think that was to drum up some press for that. And then also, I think that's probably when the 0083 retelling manga started coming out, Rebellion, which tells 0083 again, but with some 2023, Isaac. It's a long one, but I think you would enjoy it.
Probably, yeah.
So again, 24 years later, we get the second part of Mayfly of Space. We open here at Abaku, and we see the same animation of Gato's Gelgoog that we've seen so many times wreck that poor Jim with his beam saber. You know the one I'm talking about, Isaac, where the Jim comes up and Gato just like smashes right on through him, and that Jim just disintegrates.
Yeah. Gets bulldozed.
That Jim's got to be up there on like the grunt that dies so many times, and people watch it and go, "Man, that was cool."
Yeah, I have to wonder at this point, like, was that guy also an ace or like a pretty good pilot? And he was like, "Oh, that's the Nightmare of Solomon. I'll watch, guys, watch this." You know?
Boom. Yeah, it was like a water balloon exploding.
Brave, I'll give him that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his strategy was, but it didn't work out.
Strategy: get as close as you can to the Nightmare of Solomon.
And so after that, the Xeon fleet is retreating from E Field. And so if you've watched Igloo, Mobile Suit Gundam Igloo, they did a pretty good explanation of how they, Xeon split the fields into letters. I think it was for the directions, right? There was N field, S field, E, right. W field. And no sooner that I had remembered this, Isaac, because I saw that field and I was like, oh yeah, I remember when they talked about this in Igloo. And if you look closely on the screen, Isaac, there are icons for the Jotunheim and the Cuspin Battalion from Igloo. They're on Shima's radar screen, and I paused it, and I love it. I can't believe because they couldn't have done that back in 1992 because Igloo hadn't come out. But now it's 2016. Igloo is almost 20 years old at that point, so they put it in. I liked that a lot because remember in Igloo, the Jotunheim and the Cuspin Battalion were acting as screens for Xeon to escape Abaku, so I thought that was pretty fun.
Brian, Gundam content and lore ages like fine wine. Or
right?
Stinky French cheese. It just gets better.
It does. I thought it was great. I liked it. The Federation fleet of Salamis and Jims tries to break through a Gelgoog Marine group decked out in camouflage, Isaac. And that is basically Shima's force. They're called the MAU Shima, which stands for Marine Amphibious Unit. What did you think about this camouflage pattern, Isaac?
Number one, not a lot of water in space, so I'm not sure why amphibious was required.
I took it was the sea metaphor, right? Solomon Sea, it's a capital ship. But I agree, it's very confusing. Yeah. We don't usually see amphibious used out in space.
If Admiral Isaac was running the show, things would have gone much better. Let me just say that, all right? Number two, I read about this camouflage and how it would cause problems, looking at it if you're using an optical sensor, like, the cameras that everybody uses in their mobile suits. And, seeing it in motion and stuff, like, I absolutely bought it. At first I was like, oh, this is kind of a weird leopard print kind of thing. And then, as I was seeing them flying, especially towards the viewer, towards the camera, the screen, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I had no idea how to be able to paint this, but it looks cool.
That was exactly my thought too. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I would not want to paint this on a model.
No, it's impossible. If anyone can pull it off, like, I don't know, you deserve like a Gundam medal, or you deserve a flight to Japan, and then you get to meet like Sunrise, and they shake your hand to take a picture, and they're like, wow, you did it.
Could you imagine though, you're that guy that's like so good that you can do this paint job, and then you enter in the contest, and everyone in the contest is like, all right, here's my unicorn, here's my Gundam Ariel, here's my Strike Freedom, all these main suits, and then like they get to you and you're like, well, here's my Gelgoog Marine Commander from the 2016 short that no one watched, painted in camo. Like, I would vote for that guy. But
yeah, the casual Gunpla people might just kind of move on to the next model, but I feel like people that are in the know, especially experienced painters, experienced Gunpla people, that'd probably stop them in their tracks, right? And they'd just stare, trying to deduce, like, how did you actually pull off that paint pattern by hand?
And I'm sure someone's done it. So listeners, if you have a good example of this, let us know. I think it's pretty cool. So props to that person if you pulled this off. Here, Isaac, Shima's and her pals are basically engaging these gyms. They're not doing too well. A new character kind of comes out of nowhere, Gale Hunt. He's a fugitive on the run, I think, from the Federation or something. He's featured more in 0083 Rebellion, which I think this sort of drummed up some support for. So I think we'll leave his story to the Rebellion review if we ever get there. Because he doesn't really do anything in here, right?
No. Other than, show his face. But let's just say this. He looks like a criminal.
He does, yeah.
He looks clinically insane, Like, that is not a face you want to see, like, at night or anything,
Yeah. There was Chappelle just, not to go on a tangent, but Chappelle just hosted SNL, and he called one of the Senate candidates observably stupid. And this guy, Gale Hunt, is observably a criminal, right?
Yeah, like you look at that face and you're like, okay, I see who did the war crimes.
It was clearly this man.
It was him. Like, we don't even need to interview anybody. It was him.
Yeah. Shima's Gelgoog, they get hammered. She gets hit. Her visor breaks. She says, Zeke Zeon, farewell. You basically think she's going to die. But she wakes up from another nightmare. It's the same as the first one, I think, or at least very similar from the first nightmare from the first Mayfly of Space special.
One of our officers has to tell her, like, you can't sleep in your chair. Like,
go to bed.
Yeah, I know you're important, but like for your own health, for your back, you're a pilot. You need to lay in your bed and go to sleep.
Get her a sleep number bed or, one of those bed in a box. I think she'd sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
Except now, Isaac, we fast forward a little bit. We're in October 23 of 083. This is the day that Gato brings Unit 2 with him to space. But when he gets there, 2 Salamis and their Jims attack him, which is something we did not see in the show, if I recall correctly. But Gato's there with his rendezvous force, and he uses a new rifle that I don't think we've seen the GPO-2 use before. Maybe it was a video game or something, but not in animation. He uses what's called the 135mm anti-ship rifle, which fires a bullet that goes right through one of the Salamis and a GM. If you're that Jim, you gotta be sad, right? You're like, you see the bullet hit the Salamis, and you're like, all right, I'm good, and then it still comes through and hits you too. That's bad luck.
I'm not sure you have time to be sad, but yeah.
Or at least you think, I'm behind the ship. I'm not going to die, right?
I think your final neuron was like surprise, and then you just feel nothing. And then oblivion. But yeah.
What did you think of the anti-ship rifle?
It was pretty cool. Again, at a certain point, like, I think Zeon's thinking was, all right, well, fewer mobile suits mean we just keep them further back and they just shoot farther.
I mean, it kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, like, there's just so many waves coming that, at that point it becomes a numbers game and a race against the clock. But
yeah,
but it was still pretty cool. I'm all for seeing, cool sniper action.
So Gato slices up some Jims with his, beam saber, and then a Jim explodes in front of him, shot from behind, and who appears but a Gelgoog Marine commander type in Shima's colors. And at this point, Gato wonders, is it Cima? Because I assume at this point, Isaac, he hasn't really seen her in 4 years?
Yeah.
3-4 years?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. And then we flash back, Isaac, to Abawaku. People are arguing what to do. I think it's the laws, or I'm guessing it's the laws. This was in Japanese, so I can't tell I don't know his Japanese voice offhand, but I assume it's the laws saying, don't overreact. We'll go regroup with Maharaja Karn at Axis.
Yeah, good name drop.
Yeah, get the Karn family name drop. But then, Isaac, we are subtly introduced to Shima's public enemy number 1, Colonel Asakura. Shima is incredulous at this guy because he's telling her that she needs to give her ship, the Lily Marlene, to the Federation as compensation. I assume for surrendering. They don't really say it in here, but if you go look up the lore, he was in Mobile Suit Gundam, the original. And he helped develop the nerve gas that was used inside too by Shima's team, unknowingly, I guess, by her. And he also supervised the development of the solar ray, which used Shima's home colony of Mahal, as the base.
This guy was like the weapons development head project guy or something, right?
Yeah,
wow.
And you know what, Isaac? He's still listed as alive on the wiki. He's not dead. He escaped. Isn't that nuts?
Well, I was about to say, I could have sworn she would have killed him, but she clearly tried.
Yeah. So she's so upset here because, and we're going to learn in a little bit here, but so one, not only did he make her gas the colony, not only did he use her own colony as the base for the solar ray, but now he's telling her to give her ship up. And so Shima just lashes out. She tries to go kill him. He's in his red Chevet, but she's stopped by Gato in that prototype, what's known as the prototype Rickdom Zui, or Zwei. Maybe Zwei, I don't know.
Which was really just a space Tropen.
Yeah, which is really what we think is probably just an accident, right? It seems like, again, we talked about this in the WA3 review, listeners, but after Gato's Gelgoog is damaged and he goes in, he tries to get into that red Dom-Tropen, or at least what looks like a red Dom-Tropen, And it's probably just an animation error or just a cool DOM that they were like, hey, it's cool, let's make it red. But, the lore has made it a RicDom 2 prototype with a Dom-Tropen frame, and it has a special name. It's called the prototype RicDoms Y. It's one of those examples of a nice, make your lore work kind of retcon thing, in my opinion. That's what I think, Isaac. I don't think they meant for that to be the prototype RicDoms Y from the get-go, right?
Right, yeah. It was just a case of, we already did our concept art. We already animated out the DOMs that are going to be appearing in the series. Just recycle it. No one will notice. Unfortunately, anime fans and nerds and weebs, we did notice.
There's that one guy at Sunrise who was like, they found it. They're asking what the red DOM is. And he's like, God damn it, now I gotta write like a paragraph.
Oh yes, they made an Earth variant for tropical and heat weather, but they were still in space, so they had to engineer the actual components for space use, but they just kept the aesthetics and then they just shipped it to Earth later on.
Boom, roasted.
There you go.
The lore is intact. So, Gato speeds in and stops Cima from killing Colonel Asakura in this red RicDoms Y that we saw briefly in the show, but did not see him actually take it out. So we see him take it out here, Isaac, and they clash. He tells her to calm down. Not in a sexist way, but it certainly comes off as like, he's telling the angry woman to like calm it down.
It was very Gato.
Yeah. And he's like, you should act in a manner more befitting of a soldier and wait for Zeon to rise again. And at this point, Isaac, we get a sense of how disillusioned I think she is with Zeon, right? I mean, she says, at this point, I'm already a war criminal. I might as well hang myself now. She wonders what the rise of Zeon again has to do with her. I think she's over it.
Yeah, pretty much. She wanted to get revenge. She couldn't get revenge. And now she's being told, oh, just stick around. Just hold on. But she rightly knew that she would be treated differently. If you remember 083 at Delaz's throne room, Gato had nothing nice to say about her. And not only that, Delaz never really defended her.
Right. Yeah. She's been chewed up and spit out by the Zeon machine. Yes. And I don't think she has any sympathy left.
No, she's literally just a tool. The Gelgu Marines have always been just a tool.
So we flash forward to present in 083, and they are clashing sabers again here. I like this. It was a nice bit of camera work, I'll call it. So they were clashing sabers in the past. Gelgu Marine versus RicDoms Y, and now you got the Gelgu Marine and the GPO2. She has a good line here, Isaac. She says, I escaped the noose thanks to you, Gato. I was like, oh, geez, that's direct. So clearly, I guess you're to assume that Gato did stop her that day and she didn't kill Lieutenant Asakura.
Yeah, we would have seen him go down.
Yeah.
Could she have gotten away with it? I mean, he had his Chevet. I think there were a few other capital ships with him, and I assume mobile suits.
She could have probably killed him in the Chevet. She would have taken out the Chevet because no one would have stopped her, right? It's just a Gelgoog approaching. You wouldn't shoot it down per se. But once she does shoot it down, then I think everyone in the immediate vicinity is going to shoot her down. So I think it was more of a suicide run, right? I mean, she's got nothing left to live for at that point, and she admittedly thinks that she's a war criminal at this point, and they're going to hang her anyway.
Did you notice when she was having her like really brief fight with the GPO2 that I don't know what they made it out of, but her Gelgoog shield was able to take a direct beam hit.
Oh yeah, that was. I think that was actually against the GPO4. But yeah, I did notice that.
Okay. Yeah, that blew me away. Like I was like, why didn't they make everything out of that? Like we never see the shields be able to take a beam shot like that. Oh my god.
Yeah, I did see someone arguing about that in the YouTube comments. They were like, this doesn't make sense. Or her shield shouldn't have survived. What did someone say? Someone said, oh, the GPO4's beam rifle was for rapid fire, not for single shots. So maybe it wasn't that powerful or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Because if you remember when she uses the Gerbera Tetra at the end, she's got that beam machine gun. It's the same gun.
I see. Okay, so it's so much weaker, and it's just
potentially, yeah.
It's designed for just scatter fire almost.
I like that explanation. I'll go with it.
Sure.
And then Isaac, we get the final nail in the coffin for Cima. So now she's in a bar. She's depressed. She sees it on TV. Gale, the guy we saw earlier, he's turned himself in.
Let's just say that she might be depressed, but she looks great. She put on her finest clothes and jewelry.
She did. She dressed to the nines, And on TV, she sees that Gale has turned himself in to the Federation authorities, and she's surprised. And she gets this flash of Asakura yelling at her, telling her that her fleet overstepped its military regulations and that she will be penalized for dirtying the name of Zeon. And so that's it. That's her story, Isaac. This guy used her to gas the colony, and then blamed the gassing of the colony on her team instead of taking, the blame for it himself. It still doesn't even really come out and say it. I mean, you have to kind of connect the dots there, right?
Yeah, you definitely understand a lot more, but the only way to really understand it is kind of putting your hands up in the, that you were dealt a bad hand. That's life.
Yeah.
This is terrible. And that's really why I like Cima so much, because she is justifiably treasonous, I should say, justifiably treacherous. When we see her in 0083, she's a glorified pirate at that point. So this fully explains why she's the way she is, why her crew's the way they are. They did what they were told. They were good Zeon soldiers, and they get stabbed in the back, treated like dirt after committing war crimes, of course. But from what we gleaned, they clearly weren't fully aware of what was happening. And if they were, regardless of whether they knew or not, she definitely had, bad feelings after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this makes, like you just said, this makes her and her team make so much more sense, to the point where, like, I'm shocked that they even put her in the show without putting this Mayfly of Space stuff in the show.
Yeah, this whole knowledge that we've had here, and even before, if you never even seen these and you just kind of read up on what happened, she's very much the tragic villain, possibly not even a villain, a character, a victim of circumstances, and her choices, other people's choices. That's why I think Cima is such a great multi-layered character, especially in the face of so many other Zeon characters and officers that we meet who are, just goose-stepping goons.
Yeah. Do you think maybe they didn't put it in the show because then you wouldn't want Ko to kill her? Because having seen this, I don't want Cima to die. I want her to go kill Asakura.
Yeah, you want the Cima story, the Cima revenge tale.
Yeah.
Which apparently, from what I read in some of the comments, does exist in a video game.
Yes. I believe she also maybe potentially doesn't, things transpire a little differently in Rebellion as well.
Ooh,
so
interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just more of an issue of time. Let's give everybody watching the very briefest, threads of a reasoning behind why she's the way she is. We'll only reference the gassing and all that and her poor reputation, but this stuff really dives much more deeper and gives us a full perspective.
I wish they would have put it in the movie, Isaac.
Yeah.
Although remember that we did say that someone edited that down to 2 hours and it came out to 1 hour 59 minutes and they were like, boom, done.
The Mayfly of Space. So, did you have any thoughts on that bizarre name? I mean, she's never called in the series, there goes Cima, she's the Mayfly of Space.
I was wondering that before we started, actually, because I don't know too much about Mayflies. But you're right, no one calls her that. It's not her name like Nightmare Solomon is Gato's name. It's only something that the viewer knows her as. Or at least I assume it's meant to, refer to her. It's not the same sort of ace pilot name. I don't know a lot about mayflies. I guess if I go look up a mayfly, let's see.
It looks kind of like a dragonfly. I actually did a little bit of reading as like, what's their symbolism in Japanese culture? Because, here in the United States, I don't think there's any symbolism for mayflies one way or the other. But apparently, I guess they have short lifespans or something like that. And in Japanese culture, they're, from what I read, the very little bit that I read, that's exactly what they symbolize, the brief transience of life. So I guess that fits her. She had such a brief life, died in her 30s, always kind of around death, I guess. Gassed the colony, tried to go home, and they used her colony as a solar ray. So, Cima, you poor woman.
Yeah, that makes sense about the short lifespan. I mean, I guess that's the commentary, right? She was dealt this bad hand and, died at the age of 35. But overall, I mean, we know so much more about Cima now based on this, and there's actually still some more which we haven't talked about. So at this point, we see Gato nuke the Federation fleet, and then her team blows the mirrors off the 2 stolen reclamation colonies so they can clink together and, do the little demonstration that Nina did with the glasses.
That really cool static where they get like way too close and the friction starts building up or whatever.
Yeah, that was neat. And then Isaac, something that was sorely missing from the show, a great scene here. We flash and she's in a room with none other than Bask Om, and he's showing her the new solar system plans, the defense line plan, And she mentions that he basically just told her that she will have her crimes cleared and she will take on new subordinates as part of something called the Titans. So there it is, Isaac.
So, Brian, the question that I have for you is Bascom telling the truth, or was there still a bullet with her name on it waiting for her?
Oh, I still think there was a bullet with her name on it waiting for her. Don't you?
I'm going to say... I think I have to say yes, because I can't think of anyone from the colonies who became a Titan, let alone Side 3.
Right, yeah. I think that would, especially given their... Well, I don't know. Would she be a hero to the Titans?
See, that takes us back to our 0083 discussion where the Cima fleet by default were heroes because they were fighting to protect the planet from a falling colony. Man.
The only way I think she gets out of it without a bullet to the head is if she kept some sort of incriminating evidence against Bascom from that meeting. Like, okay, if you kill me, that's fine, but guess what? I'm gonna mail this meeting to every news organization in the world, and then you're gonna get killed. So.
See, I kind of buy it because Paptimus, like, as much discrimination as he faced, like, he rose the ranks and was, depending on who he was around, he was pretty tolerated.
Yeah. They needed talented people, so that could be another reason to keep her.
Especially as things get worse.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know. Maybe it's a 50-50, but I think unless she did something to preserve, to keep Bask at bay, there was definitely a bullet on her way. That doesn't mean that he would have done it. It doesn't mean that she wasn't useful.
You know what?
Doesn't mean that she wouldn't have been a hero, but she's also a loose end, Isaac.
You know what? I'm going to double down and say, I think just based on the fact that the Federation to their fleet announced that, we'll be working with the Cima fleet, even though a lot of officers, like, not even just Synapse, but that other officer in the pursuit fleet was like really shocked at he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Just the fact that they announced it and they were, working together at the critical moment, I'd say that, yeah, the offer was legitimate.
Okay, I think the offer is legit. I just don't know that,
Tears definitely weren't shed when she died and the fleet, the Cima fleet was wiped out. Yeah, definitely that.
Yeah, and in a year down the road, 2 years down the road, that doesn't mean he's not going to kill you then.
Yeah, I'm sure in the carnivorous politics of the Titans, something would have transpired even if she was around, where maybe she would have been killed by Paptimus or Jamatov. Who knows?
Yeah, or, a training exercise gone bad.
Yeah, who knows? Or she just would have, the Cima fleet would have been treated as the cannon fodder of the Titans or something. We don't know. And Bascom was like so happy, wasn't he? He
was. He was grinning from ear to ear, that guy.
Like a kid showing his new toy to like one of his new friends.
That evil son of a...
You like that solar system? I made it across. It's a big plus sign.
Now it's vaguely white supremacist.
Yeah. She was like looking at it like, I guess that's a solar system.
Didn't it used to have more mirrors? What happened?
Yeah. You can take off your glasses. We're indoors.
So right after this meeting, Isaac, we get to see her launch, I assume for the first time, in the Gerbera Tetra. Because if you notice, in the first time we see it in this Mayfly of Space, it still has two eyes. It still has a more Gundam-like face. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I'm glad you caught it too. At first I saw it and I was like, that's the Gerbera Tetra's body, but that's a Federation face.
Yeah,
it's like white and the eyes were still green, I think, but there
were two. So
yeah, the face itself was white. So I was like, oh, she hasn't customized it yet, or. Now that I think about it, I have no idea in what state Anaheim actually gave it to them. Maybe they gave it to them in like the quasi Gundam state, and they were like, "Well, you guys can take it from here." I don't know at what point we were looking at it. Like, was it still in Anaheim possession or what?
Well, that's interesting because now we'll get to that third short here in a second. But then we get to see it in action a little bit more. But then we do get to see Ko kill her again. But I did like about this, they showed Ko destroy the Lily Marlene again. And you see Cima look back at it, and she has this sort of grimace. And now that grimace means more, having watched these two shorts. Particularly this second short.
Yeah, I always liked the Lily Marlene. All Zanzibars are kind of the same. But, like, as far as Zanzibars go, the Lily Marlene's, like, it's the white base of Zanzibars.
But I think it was a lot more sad this time, Isaac. And again, because this wasn't in the show, you don't know that.
Right, exactly. You feel the loss more, especially after she saved it from a raw deal at the end of the 1 year war, and it was her home for like years, and yeah, What could have been.
And then she has her quote here, which sums up the whole short, which is, living in this world is like rolling the dice. I suppose I made a bad roll.
Wow.
But at the same time, I mean, she did good just to get to that point, right? She was going to get screwed over multiple times, and she still made it out, but her luck ran out, basically.
Yeah. You could even say her bad luck ran out.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, wow, God, what a great phrase that really, at least the first half at least, kind of applies to everybody. Each day, your whole life really is just a roll of the dice, and some days are going to be good rolls and bad rolls, and man, poor Cima. It just feels so much more tragic, and as tragic as it is, you do appreciate what a great character she is even more. At least I do, as a Cima fan.
Yeah, I agree. Shima's a great character, and I'm happy that they made these shorts. I did read a little bit what happens to her in Rebellion. I think you'll be pleased.
Good enough for me.
Also, we got to see the Gerbera again here, Isaac, and I wish they would make a Master Grade or at least a Reborn 100 of this suit, because it's pretty cool, and we don't have one.
I'll say this. Two things. Number one, the Gerbera looked great here. Dare I say even better than in 0083, especially because we see it so briefly in 0083, right?
Yeah.
Here we see much better angles of it. Number two, in many ways, the Gerbera Tetra, design-wise, feels ahead of its time, because just visually, it looks like it would absolutely be at home in a lot of the recent non-UC series.
Oh, yeah, I agree. 100%.
Decades ahead of its time, just a very modern look to it and all that. It would have been at home in that prelude to the Witch from Mercury.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And
in the UC, I would say at a minimum, it would be home in the Zeta era.
Yeah, it could definitely pass with how wacky things got.
Yeah, or the Double Zeta era, even the Victory Crossbone era. I think it would.
Yeah,
it has enough curves, just like Cima does.
Zing. Yeah, the design team they did a heck of a job. But you know me, Brian. If I see red, I think Char. So as far as I'm concerned, it should have gotten a paint job.
Would you have preferred that she painted it in her purple and like gold?
Absolutely, yeah. Or even do a throwback and they do their marine camo.
Oh yeah, that would be cool too. Yeah.
Why did they stop at the marine camo? You think my headcanon would have to be that close of the 1 year war, the Federation engineers they figured out sensor wise what to do to defeat that camo.
Well, it has to be something like that, because you read the description and you think, well, why don't they just paint all suits like this?
Yeah, or ships,
Yeah. The ships certainly need some help, because people like Gato just walk in front of them and shoot them down. So
yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Did you notice, Isaac, the ending to this short was a song I hadn't heard before? It's an English version of the 0083 ending song. So the 0083 ending song from, I think it's episodes 8 through 13, is called Evergreen. I think it's by Mio. But the ending to this one is an English version of that song called Starbright. And it was great. I loved it. So I'm going to add that to my playlist.
Yeah, I really liked it. And that song has such a bittersweet kind of tragic melody to it. I wouldn't say it's a complete downer, but it's very much sad to go end credits.
Yeah, well, it's perfect for this short, right?
Yeah, and it absolutely fit how at least me as a Cima fan, and I assume you're a Cima fan yourself, even though you're majority Federation. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
But we were so sad to see how her life ended up and the things she'd gone through, and her tragic death. Very, very fitting. I'm glad we got to hear it in English, because me, I'm pro dub.
Yeah, so this is a great short. Mayfly of Space 1 was fun, but it was like 3 minutes long, not a whole lot in there. Mayfly of Space 2, definitely recommended if you haven't seen it, because if you bought the DVDs in 0083 back in the day, Mayfly of Space 2 didn't exist. So it's only from 2016, so unless you had, listened to this from the Stardust Memory CD cinema episodes from the early 90s, I highly doubt that you knew about this. So check it out on YouTube. Someone's got it up, with subs and everything. So highly recommend it if you like 083. So Isaac, this brings us to our final short that we're talking about tonight. This is not really a Cima short per se, but Cima's involved, and it relates to the GPO4 / the Gerbera. So again, as part of UC Engage, there was a cutscene where Cima, in her Gelgug Marine Commander, takes on Pesh, who's piloting the GPO4, but in a finished version. So the canon lore, as far as I know, is still that the GPO4 was never completed. It was developed up to a certain extent that it was in suitable shape to give to Xeon, but it had never been fully assembled or tested like a Gundam.
Right.
However, this is not true in the recent, 0083 manga adaptation, which we just talked about, Rebellion. So in Rebellion, the GPO-4 is finished, and they test it at the same time that they test the GPO-1 full Vernian on the moon. But the events of Rebellion still don't match this short. So either this short is a retcon of the existing continuity that says GPO-4 was never finished, or it's just a what if. That said, I think it's an easy retcon if they wanted to just say that this is now the new canon, because they could just say that this test of the GPO-4 versus Cima was never public knowledge and it was always secret, and therefore the lore is still sort of intact. It was just never officially recorded. Because they did end up giving it to Cima, right? So obviously it was somewhat functional when they gave it to her. So it's not a leap to say that she was like, well, let me test it out first, pilot it against me. So I guess make your own headcanon, Isaac. I mean, do you like it better if they finished it and she tested it out like this, or did you prefer them giving it to her unfinished?
I guess finished makes more sense because she doesn't strike me as a person who would take something that was unfinished, right?
Yeah, not a lot of time passed either. It's not like they had time to make a whole new suit or anything. So I don't know. I could buy it, but I don't know what the official word is. I do know that the version that we watched didn't have any subtitles. I swear I watched one with subtitles at some point, but they've been taken down. YouTube's been taking down a lot of these UCN gauge clips, so if you watch one, don't be surprised to see it gone 3 months later. So I think maybe the one I had watched that had subtitles before, I think has been taken down.
Especially after we watch it, like Last Blitz of Xeon, where we torpedoed it and they immediately removed it.
Yeah, clearly they listened to our podcast and they were like, oh, they didn't like it. Shut it down.
Those idiots at Sunset, they're watching it. Get it off. Delete,
ruining our uploads. But for those who haven't seen it, I mean, go punch in Cima and GPO-4. And Cima dukes it out with Pesh, and Cima kind of takes Pesh for a ride here, Isaac. The GPO-4 looks great, though. It's really cool to see another unit of the Gundam Development Project animated in nice animation. This animation was a bit better than the Gato one, maybe?
Yeah.
It was shorter. This one was only like a minute, I think.
Yeah.
But I like this short because it scratches two itches, Isaac. It gave us more Cima and a Gundam that we hadn't seen animated before.
Right, yeah. And I mean, we don't see a ton of the Gundam, but
right, yeah, no,
it looked cool. I thought the eyes were a little big, but it still looked cool.
But I did read that in the comments, someone did say that in this scene, she does say that she will be taking the machine. So it does appear to be some sort of test fight that they're having. Besides the lore saying that GPO-4 was never finished, it still lines up with this short if you assume that she takes it afterwards. So that part is still intact. It's not like, they're fighting to the death or anything. At least to me, it seemed like a test fight, right?
Right, yeah. And, I mean, I guess it performed well. It definitely came off as maneuverable.
Yeah, and Pesh doesn't seem like the most ace pilot type person, so I think Cima was just kind of getting used to it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool to see Cima again. The Gelgug Marine Commander looked great, as usual.
Cool shield, yeah.
So there you go, Isaac. That was a good dose of Cima there. That's not to say that this is all the Cima side story content. There's probably some stuff out there. I know she's in some of the games. I think there's maybe some Giran's Greed or maybe even Encounters in Space alternate stuff where she goes into the Titans or something like that. But at least in terms of official lore, and again, this UCN gauge, I don't know that it's really official. It might be more of a what if, but I think it's passable. So yeah, I'm after watching these specials, Isaac, I hadn't watched the original Mayfly of Space since way back when, in 2002 or whenever, when we got those DVDs. But the new Mayfly of Space was great. I really enjoyed that. So again, if you're a 0083 fan, go check out Mayfly of Space, especially number 2. You could almost just not even watch number 1. The second one is what, like 11 minutes? It's so much more. It's so much longer. It's almost half an episode.
Yeah, it's great. It's exactly what it should have been. The first one, I vaguely remember that like it was based on an audio drama or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was on that CD. It was on the soundtrack, and they're both adapting the same thing. I think it just adapts more of it the second time. So
yeah, they were really squeezing water from a stone. So not a lot to go on. But hey, here's some fresh content.
Yeah, so that concludes our look at the Nightmare of Solomon, Anavel Gato, and the Mayfly of Space, Cima Garahau. I think that was fun. I enjoy these ace pilot sort of side stories. I hope we get more of them in the future, whether it's through these mobile game or video game cutscenes or just these one-shot mangas. I think they're fun, and I think they really expand the lore, and that's a good example of why I like the Gundam franchise, right? There's always these little nooks and crannies for you to inhabit if you're nerdy enough, like those people that found the red Rick Dom, and they were like the red Dom-Tropen, and they were like, no, you have to tell me what it is. What is it? So
the Gundam nerds that like push their glasses up their nose and are like, excuse me.
The Dom-Tropen was clearly only for Earth-based
that
combat.
That is not a space Dom.
What is wrong with you?
How did it get in the hangar?
Why is it here? Why is it so far from Earth?
How did Delaz let this happen?
Oh, man. So, any closing thoughts, Isaac?
Yeah, Gato and Cima. Me and Brian, since we kind of came up through 0083 into Gundam, we've clearly said our thoughts on it, but I'm really curious what you, the listeners, think about Gato and Cima. What's your opinions on them? Are they essentially just pure out-and-out war criminals who should have almost no pity? Do they have no redeeming qualities? Or are they pretty well-done characters that are tragic villains or even tragic protagonists, if you think about it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell us what you think about Gato, Cima. You don't necessarily have to compare them or contrast them, but just, on their own. And if you've seen this content also, or if you decide to watch it after listening to this podcast, tell us what you thought about what you actually saw.
Absolutely. And then also let us know what other characters you think Sunrise should do things like this for. Is it Shin Matsunaga? Is it Johnny Raiden? Is it some more obscure ones? I would like to see some more Federation ones, Isaac. We hear a lot about Xeon Ace pilots. You don't hear a whole lot about the Federation guys.
Yeah, that might just be, unfortunately, because of like the time handicap, so to speak, like because the war goes on so long before the Federation pilots even get their mobile suits. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but there's still no reason we can't, like we said, the Immortal Fourth Team or other similar aces or groups of aces. It's all just waiting there. We'd all love to see it.
Agreed. All right, Isaac, take us away.
All right, listeners, before you go to sleep tonight, stand next to your bed, get on your knees, put your hands together, look up at the ceiling, and hail the Delaz fleet.
Good night, everybody.